All right, welcome to another episode of the Modern Cyber Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy, and Modern Cyber is brought to you by Firetail. We've got a really interesting topic for today's discussion, and I know we're going to get into some areas that are top of mind for everybody in 2024. I kind of make the joke that we are legally obligated to talk about AI, and in fact, AI is going to be a big part of the focus of today's conversation. And I'm joined by somebody who has actually a ton of experience in the space, even before AI became the buzzword that it is today. I am joined today by Alexey Sapozhnikov. I hope I got that name right, Alexey.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Right.
Awesome. Well, Alexey is the founder and CEO of the Andeavour Group. Andeavour is a pioneer in organizational intelligence that brings zero integration AI to the world of organizational business units, especially in information security and compliance. Alexey is a serial entrepreneur with 2 exits. He's raised over $35 million in his career, more than 20 years of launching and directing cutting-edge, large-scale technology production practices. He is the author and creator of the very first Israeli generative AI enterprise-grade product adopted by several Fortune 1000 global customers. Previously, the CTO and co-founder of Prove Incorporated, which was acquired by a UK-based PE firm and is now a leader in POC as a service in AI, so a deep experience in AI, and also formerly the technical executive for and VP of R&D at SAP Labs Israel, a senior team leader in Mind CTI and other prominent software companies in his background as well. Alexey is a Frost & Sullivan 2018 Cloud Innovation Award winner, member of the AWS Founders Club, and an Entrepreneurs Organization EO alumni. I don't know where you find the time to do it all, Alexey, but thanks so much for taking the time to join us today.
Thanks to you, Jeremy, for having me here.
All right, my pleasure. Well, let's drive straight in because, like I said, AI is the top of mind for most organizations right now. Mm-hmm. I hear so many different things about it. We use it in our own product building, but I hear, AI is better for attackers. No, it's better for defenders. It creates so many risks. No, those risks are not true. Where do you start the thinking, and kind of what's your overall state of AI right now in your own mind?
So, first of all, great question, and I would like to give my vision about this the following way. When the ChatGPT was released by OpenAI, for many people in cybersecurity, it was like iPhone moment. Okay, it was like the moment of truth. Some amazing capabilities, something incredible and believable, and so. However, for many people that actually used to work with neural network, with knowledge transfer of various models, much before ChatGPT was released, it was like, okay, so it's a next step, but it wasn't like a wow moment. So like for majority of people, it was like a shock. And this shock inevitably actually led to, multiple extrapolation to both sides. That it will be a super weapon for the attackers, and it actually should be multiple, magic pill for the AI practitioners and vendors. So I believe there is a change. There is a change for both sides, for bad actors and for the security practitioners and the vendors. However, it is a little bit overhyped currently. And I think we need carefully to speak about the real change that's going on the bad side and the real change that is going on the good side. If we will have a time, we will probably speak today about the AGI, which, yes, will be a critical change if it will happen. Okay. However, the AI is a little bit like slightly less powerful thing, and it's like we should be really carefully analyze it for both sides. Where are the real use cases?
Well, let's talk about those real use cases. I mean, obviously chat and chatbots and, kind of natural human interaction is where a lot of use cases are right now. And we've seen so many instances of let's say, customer support agents that are
Yeah,
chatbots and so on. And some of them are helpful. And we're starting to see in Google search, if you
yeah,
haven't turned that feature off, you'll see AI recommended results right at the top.
yeah, for sure.
But what are some of the use cases that you think are actually concrete and real today?
That's a great question. So let me let me start from the following angle, to enter all that. So let's start from the security risks and the real use cases that should be solved, from the perspective of new products or new features. So if I'm looking on the pure side of using of AI today, I would say that the biggest problem that it's probably will create for the security information exposures, it's actually the problem that the data that wasn't so sensitive and wasn't so important, and before it maybe could be shared with some third party, today became more dangerous to share because in the bad side you have the capability of making the reverse engineering, of making some advanced attacks based on AI. They also have this weapon, so this is probably the most dangerous part. Okay.
Yep. Yep.
Now, the overhyped moment, or overhyped moment that we have, in the part of security products and all that, is to create a special product that will secure only the LLM used by a
Yeah.
company or the usage of LLM. The truth is that those things should be addressed, and they are addressed by application security and by enterprise browser. So if your company is actually, if your organization is using the advanced application security, and definitely the API security and the EDR, and the standard, things that are already exist here for many years, and it's also using enterprise browser, you should feel safe with the problems of inappropriate usage of LLM. And if you are not using this set, so your problem are much bigger than just the LLM exposure. So if your organization is not using the enterprise browser or even the extension for the enterprise browser, if it's not using the standard application security, so it's not just about LLM, it's about the multiple things. So the we can read today that from one perspective, we see that many venture capitalists already starting to say that companies that are dealing with the LLM, security and all this stuff are a little bit overhyped, like
Yep.
the rest of the AI companies. We are starting to see that companies that raised a seed round and still didn't, go out of the stealth, already saying that they are doing a pivot, which is, kind of a strange situation.
Yep. Yep.
And the reality is that again, the big players in the field that are providing, standard set of the protection, like I said, application security, enterprise browser, API security, and all the rest, are deeply into the protection of LLM into this area. Now, the access control, for example, is an interesting place, but again, it's not clear now how much of access control will be provided by AI, providers, and if,
Yep.
it will be not secured enough or yes secured, so it's not a clear weapon. So I will say that a real use case that we probably have, it's we have a real use cases. The question is like like a posing of model, and the trying to reverse engineering the data and DDoS the
Yeah.
model. All those things are existing, okay, and so it's like, but it's protected today, but this by the standard case. But the big story is to understand what bad guys can do with using the AI power on their side, because that can change, what you should protect.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
that 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 could change it. Yes.
Yeah, and it's interesting. You raise something there that we see in our labs and our own
Yeah.
testing all the time, right?
Yeah.
We focus on API security, but you
Yeah.
could focus on anything.
Yeah.
As soon as you put something online for testing purposes, it starts to get traffic. And,
Yes.
typically we see it within like 3 to 5 minutes, right? And we're like a tiny little company, middle of nowhere. And we put something online, no DNS name, just an IP address. So there's nothing linking to it, right? But
Yeah.
everything gets traffic all the time. And you brought up something that we actually witness, like in real life, when we look at the logs, is anything you put online, it's going to get traffic, but that traffic is getting increasingly smart, meaning that it's not just a random HTTP request. It's an HTTP request. Oh, there's a response. Well, that's followed by 25, 30, 50 more requests to try to discover what's running at this IP address. And is there something running with a known vulnerability? So I'm curious from that perspective, like to me, as a cyber defender and a former practitioner, what that says is okay, number one priority, eliminate vulnerabilities, right? Because what they're looking for primarily is they're looking for known software packages, known, server fingerprints, that kind of thing, or application fingerprints, and to
Mhm.
just leverage an exploit against that environment. Is that the right way to think about it, or is that just one aspect?
So I would say that, if we are talking about our BVM and all those approach of basically address your vulnerabilities, based on the risk, and this is like a neighbor area to what we are doing with our cyber product. I would
Okay.
say it's not necessary should be changed. Okay, it's not
Okay.
necessary should get an additional, priority, an additional increase risk score or something like that. However, what is really important is to understand which parts of exposures became really risky for reverse
Yeah.
engineering and for creating more sophisticated attacks. Because you said that if you are putting something in the cloud with just this IP address, we saw it many times.
Yeah.
In my
Yeah.
previous company, when we actually had a huge production, paying to Amazon colossal sums. So
Yeah. Yeah.
and we had like I don't know, maybe 400 machines in the good times. So I saw many times that once you are putting a machine, so you immediately get the traffic because there are bad actors that know the range of the IPs from the Amazon, and they're starting to brute force all this stuff, and you should never expose anything, before you have some DDoS protection. But the issue is that let's take this example with the brute force, or just some tries to hack you. It's not just that they are analyzing the answers; they are enhancing the answers with the real time, with some external, knowledge, with some external things, and they can compare it, create more sophisticated answer, enhance it by external information, which was very, very problematic to do before. Now, another
Yeah.
issue is that uh, with the parts of information that are available outside, using those AI techniques, the bad actors can actually create more sophisticated way to enter inside and to broke your defense that
Yeah.
wasn't so simple to do before.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
that's are the kind that for example, they can say, okay, based on this history, this is a former employee of this company, and we see that he is active in GitHub or something like that. Let's run this script very fast that will look for the credential that he may leave in the GitHub, something like that, and then it's probably like create multiple new vectors of attack, which were taking to create such vector of attack much more efforts for the bad actors before. And we are still talking about the current state of AI. We are not talking about of, some new quality levels that AI should jump, and definitely we are still not talking about AGI.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this is just with the stuff that we have today, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
to your point, the AI right now really lowers the cost and it lowers the time to make
yeah.
those, let's say, more informed attacks or more informed targeted attacks, et cetera. So I'm
Yeah.
curious about something else. So, we think about that's from an attacker perspective. So if we think
Yeah.
about from a defense perspective, or and I know security and compliance are not the same thing, and that's a longer discussion that I don't want to get into today. But how can we think about using AI from an organizational perspective to either check our security state or improve our security posture?
So that is a super point. So that's why we created our, I don't want any promotion here, but that's why we
Yeah,
created our security product, which is doing it. But what I think we probably need to understand as a security officers is that AI is not a magic pill also for the defending. So you can create something that will do one task very good, out of multiple sources. You can create multiple sources that you can create some that will make some limited number of tasks out of some special data when you probably know the structure of the data, or you can hint at the structure of the data. What you cannot do is actually something which will do everything for everything. Now I see a lot of tries to come to security officers and promise this,
yeah,
which is to discover all unknown threats and
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and this story, which I personally not believe. But what can be done? It's like to take one concrete hard problem with some with the huge volume of information coming out of your SOC and trying to
yeah,
solve this. Okay,
yeah.
what you can do is actually automate the mitigation, that you can actually
Okay.
do it much more in powerful way. You can predict the things in much more powerful way. But the essence in all this is that you can do something that you know that you need to do, and you need to understand from which sources you are getting the information. Now I have several of my friends, they have a PhD degree in the data science and they are working
Yeah,
for
yeah.
big security vendors. That is actually their day-to-day job, to explain to security officers, to security researchers, that AI is not a magic pill. It's not a magic pill. It's something that you need to define what you want to find, what you want to automate, what you want to enhance, and then you can do it. But you cannot like over promise and come with some utopical visions that it's something that will do everything for everything.
Yeah, and I think that's such a great point, right? You kind of, just like you said, you kind of have to know what you're targeting, right? What is the use case or
Exactly.
the analysis that you're trying to do? And then, use the AI for what it's good at, which is taking huge volumes of data, turn
Yeah.
that into something meaningful, and then probably correlate it to something else, right?
Yeah. Classify. Yes.
Yeah,
Classification. Yes.
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. So that is a good point. That for example, if let's take this actually this challenge for finding the attacks out of log data, out of some
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
metrics data, telemetry, and all this kind. Now I can tell you that the most cut-edge solutions that are available, today, what they are able to do is to create, some kind of model understanding, knowledge transfer understanding of which kind of attacks they should find, and then trying to, find those patterns in the data itself, classify the data by the patterns. So it's this is the real way, the real power of today's level of AI models, of transformers models, and all this stuff. And definitely, every classification like that have its own, level of false positive, have its own level of how what is the percentage of the data that can be explained and actually, solved correctly by the model, level of if this model is good or bad, suitable to the task, not suitable to the task. And so that's the point. And we still didn't speak about the very interesting point of AI compliance, which is
Okay.
coming those dates, to Europe. And we have in Europe the European AI Act, which is
Yep.
starting this journey, and we have it in Europe, and we have it in States soon. So that
Yeah.
what actually requires you to understand as deep as you can what's going on inside your models.
Yeah. Yeah. But I'm curious, and I mean, I've been this topic has come up before in some conversations around this, and actually two things around it have come up. I'd be curious to get your take on. The first one is there seems to be a really fast time between, let's say, like mainstream adoption of AI to
Hmm.
creating this set of guidelines from the European perspective. Much, much faster, for instance, than, let's say, GDPR, right? GDPR took probably 15, 20 years before they realized, oh, actually, all these companies are collecting so much data. We should think about regulating it. But then the second part of it, and this is the part that I'm actually most interested to kind of watch, is okay, from the EU perspective, you have GDPR, it covers the entire European Union, all of its citizens worldwide. Great. On the US side, and I say this as somebody who is both an American and an EU citizen, we have 50 states, we have no federal standard, and out of the 50 states, maybe five or six have any level of kind of privacy or data, um, let's say, disclosure requirements for what data is collected, et cetera. So, how long will this be the case with AI as well? That we have a European standard and then, like 15 years later, we get a US standard? And also, will it be the case that we have a European standard, but then we get 50 US standards for each state? I don't really know, but I've been thinking about this. I'm curious with the smile on your face. You must have thought about this some as well. So, what's your thinking?
So what I'm thinking about this, this is exactly great, comparison between the GDPR or CCPA and, and
Yeah,
the times that it took. Here again, we are talking about the regulation for AI, not for AGI.
right.
And I think that Europe is starting a good point, and I think that the having these controls installed in place, it will also remove many security risk and many application risk and many application misalignments or something like that. However, unlike GDPR, when the price of implementing GDPR is relatively not so dramatic, here the implementation of such thing can require from the company not a simple cost injection and not a simple effort injection, because it's not just documentation, it's not just thinking about what I can do to actually have some explainability about my models. It's also will it will, I think, affect the part when today many companies are using knowledge transfer. So it means they are
Yeah.
taking the source, they are taking the trained model, and they are fine-tuning model. So they will
Okay.
be required to open the model, which will took not from this zero, which will took from some stage, to open this, let's say, transformer model, and to explain, everything that's going on inside of the model, to explain why the model is getting the decision. Is this model is an ethical AI model, or it's just the model that was trained with some not ethical data? All those questions. It's not just getting the access to the needed data of the person in your database. It's much more. So
Yep.
I believe, and this is like, it's like maybe it's coming also because of some fear, of what AI can actually do, can actually make with your services. So that's probably a part that
Yeah.
will be much more costly, toy than the GDPR.
So the other side of this,
Yeah,
besides the timing
yeah,
and the
yeah,
US fractured nature,
yeah.
the other thing that I worry about is, okay, we as legitimate companies, we will have to comply with all of these regulations.
Yes,
The thing is that our adversaries don't. And they're not signing up for this. They don't care, right? And in fact, like if you look at most of the LLMs that exist today, they have ethical guidelines. If you go tell ChatGPT, write me a phishing email, it's going to refuse, right?
yes,
And if you say write me a malware, it's going to refuse. But it's not the only model. There's going to be many, many more models. And in fact, there already are, I don't know, 20, 50, 100, 1,000. I don't know how many LLM models are out there. And most of them, yeah, many more. Yeah, fine. Tens of thousands, millions, who knows, right? But like,
yeah.
how should we, in the cybersecurity community, how should we think about that? Like, at what point do we say we're actually fighting with like one arm behind our back because we're using all this regulation? And, or is it the case that, we just have to accept that's the status?
One of the so first of all, regarding your note about the chat GPT have the strong ethical guidance, that's true. However, if you are going to today's accessible LLMs, I don't
Yeah,
want to say any names, but
sure.
if you are going to very known marketplaces of the LLMs, and you are trying to run some not ethical prompt, trust me, you will succeed.
Okay.
So that's also we check it, and many other researchers check it. So that exists. I would say that I think that behaving in according to this compliance will help us in some period, because one of the risks
Okay.
that we probably should take into account is, okay, I know what I'm doing with my AI models and I'm protected, I'm good, okay. But what about the vendor that I'm working with him?
Yeah. Yeah.
What about his internal, AI? He's telling me the story that he's not using, some external things of his AI. He's in full control. But how can I know about it? Where is the certification? If I'm asking, multiple vendors, to bring me SOC 2 certifications or something like that, so here, how can I be sure that my data that I'm giving to him, because he's not in control with his, LLM, will not be, misused? Maybe his LLM, trained to send some data outside. He even don't know about it because he actually took this LLM from some fourth party provider. So
Mm.
so I think that's kind of the risk that will be okay with that. But in general, definitely, Jeremy, you're right, because the large groups, the governmental hackers, and all those bad actors, they will use AI. They will use the ability to create a powerful transformer models or something like, or another, the architecture of models without any ethical training, and they definitely will use it for attacks. But the standard tooling, the standard tool sets that we as a security practitioners that we have should be ready for it. And the biggest question again is, what kind of data or what kind of endpoints which were acceptable to expose in the past now cannot be
Mm.
exposed. This is the number one question that is really important in this
So that's really interesting. So in
cybersecurity.
a way, what that says is you need to really, it's almost like your architecture, you need to rethink about like what is exposed at the outer edge,
Yeah,
maybe what does a perimeter mean at this point, right? From
yeah,
the standpoint of, do you just put an API out there and then you have a ton of controls behind this API, and you decouple the API from the app, and you have additional access controls, whether they're network or logical or identity access
Yeah,
controls at layers further behind. That's really interesting. I think that's a great thought exercise. I'm curious about a couple of other things.
yeah,
You've mentioned AGI a couple of times in the
yeah.
conversation, and I've always heard the thing that, there was, I think there's this running thing of like the singularity
Yeah.
and a prediction, like if it doesn't happen by such and such date, then it's never going to happen. I don't like, I've heard of it. I've heard that there is a date that a few people have pointed out. How do you think about it as somebody who's been in this space way longer than I have?
So, just I will answer this super important question immediately. Just to make one remark about the previous story about
Yeah, please.
the start thing. I think one of the biggest real advantages that we as a security practitioners should yes take from the current state of AI is to reduce the amount of job that the SOC people are doing, that we as a
Yeah.
CISOs we are doing, so that products like we are producing in Endeavor and additional companies that are doing in the same. That is the big advantage that we, as a practitioners, should take out of this, new step of the things. Now, regarding the AGI, so first of all, I myself and any data scientists that I have a big respect for them that are deeply in the space. I can tell you this will be achieved. I don't know the timeline, and I don't know the exact you know period of time when it will appear. We can believe to Mr. Musk that says I don't know next year or something like that. Or
Yeah. Yeah.
it may happen in in 10 years or something like that. But in the moment this will happen, this
Okay.
will really change everything. The job market, the security market, everything. Because in the moment you actually have something that can learn how to connect to everything, connect to it, do it fast, do it with with the speed of the light, of the sound, and even create the its own clones that will do some additional job. That's definitely change everything, because the major limitation of today's AI is actually that AI can give you some answers. It can do a very limited things, very limited actions that you pre-train this AI to do, but it cannot, it cannot retrain itself. That cannot be done by today. You can give the context, you can have the fine tuning, but it's you who are the owner of AI. You can do. You cannot create the AI that's retraining itself and and learn in the real time how to make new actions from from any source of information. So that will definitely create a completely different reality, and this will be a real jump from the moment we are now, or from the moment we are at to the next level. That's for sure.
Interesting. And so, like you said at the beginning, this will really be the iPhone moment that we're all
Yes.
kind of waiting for. The current
Yes.
Chat GPT is just an evolution and one
Yeah.
step in the evolutionary process, but this could really be fundamentally revolutionary.
I can tell you that the most, wow moment with ChatGPT was that, you are giving some context to the model, and the model is answering the question based on this context. But that was known to people that are dealing with AI for many, many times, before the actual ChatGPT was open to the public. However,
Mm,
this, regarding the AGI, when the model can train itself to do everything, and it can imagine the situation when you are saying to the model, you know what, this is the access to my platform, do something very advanced with this platform, bring me the result, with those results go to the internet and do something else or something like that. Okay,
Mm,
so today you cannot do it with a chat GPT, but think about this scenario. So for
yeah. Yeah.
for so that's
Yeah. And do you think that AGI also fundamentally changes the game in security?
uh, fundamentally, I don't know if it's
Or
fundamentally
let's
changed, because
okay.
the standard the standard use cases will be there, but this, I think, yes, will require a new class of protection solutions that will concentrate solely on AGI, use cases, and
Yeah.
will probably, create some protection specifically for this kind of attack, which today, this is not there. There are it doesn't exist. It still doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Doesn't go this direction. But yes, this probably will require much more quality, jumping that it was until now.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Alexei, we're coming close to the end of today's episode. We're getting up against time. Tell us briefly about Endeavor and share with the audience a little bit about what you guys do and where they can find you online.
Okay, so thank you very much for this opportunity. Endeavor.io. Now we are dealing with organizational intelligence. We actually are coming to various business units in the organization. We are figuring out what is kind of the information, critical information, is actually critical for this particular business unit. But because of multiple reasons, they cannot discover it, they cannot
Yep.
secure it, they cannot regulate it. And then we are providing, end-to-end solution to it based on the same AI patent pending technologies that we developed. Now we have a product for cyber, already have multiple paid customers across states, Europe, and so on, which is significantly, reduced the amount of work for both vulnerability management and alert management. We have a great product for sanctions compliance, which is
Mm,
actually the first product in the world that is going after derivative sanctions. Not just finding if you are a bad organization, but also finds all your derivative affiliate entities, and
yep.
transfer
Yep.
this one. And we have a great product for HR people that is analyzing the reason for attrition in the company, and
Mm,
why people are actually leaving the company, and if this is a pattern of something bad, like why quitting, DI violation, and things like that. So that's what we are doing under this umbrella of organizational intelligence.
awesome. Awesome. And people can just find you online at endeavor.io. That's like Endeavor, but spelled with an A at the beginning,
Yeah,
correct?
in the beginning, Endeavor.io, we also have blogs there that we are running. There are few interesting topics about AI, about cyber compliance, all the stuff. And people that are interested can, just ask for a demo directly from the website. Very simple. We'll be very glad to talk to anyone.
Awesome. 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 Well, thank you to everybody who's joined us on today's episode. If you've enjoyed this episode, please do us a favor, hit that like, subscribe, follow, whatever the button is on the platform that you're using. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, really anywhere you get podcasts. We really do appreciate you taking the time to join us, listen to the content that we're putting out here. All the great speakers. If you know somebody that you'd like to recommend to come on the show, please just have them reach out. They can find the Modern Cyber Podcast on firetail.io. And ratings, reviews, and all of that are also greatly appreciated. Alexey Sapozhnikov, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today, sharing your thoughts on the current state of AI and some of the future state of AI as well.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you for this amazing opportunity, and thank you, audience.
Awesome. Awesome. We'll talk to you next time on the next episode of Modern Cyber. Bye bye.